what's going on, guys? Welcome back to my new MOZE build. This is going to be Mozerker continued. So this will be Mozerker 6.0 in case you guys didn't know what number we're on. And we got some new and interesting toys to play with in this build. First, I want to show you guys this one. This is the Nagata grenade. You guys are probably thinking, Nagata grenade? Nobody ever uses that grenade. It's actually kind of interesting, and it will proc your health regen with Vampire. So pretty cool, man, pretty cool. And then I just blew myself up. Whoops, way to go. But then we're also rocking some stuff like the Flacker. You guys are probably thinking, the Flacker, what? Yeah, the Flacker got patched recently. The Flacker is now good again. We're also rocking some stuff from Arms Race. You won't need the stuff from the Arms Race if you don't want it. It's just there, you know, because it's that damn good, and you should try to do it. Because this is the Tizzy, by the way. You guys haven't seen the Tizzy yet. This thing shreds, dude. And you guys probably saw in the intro, I tend to slaughter everything with the new gear, the plasma coil, the Tizzy. These things are exceptional pieces of gear. And look at the Nagata, dudes. Can you believe the Nagata can kill stuff? What a time to be alive. Anyhow, so let's go over the build. I'm gonna go ahead and grab that because I don't have a paratrooper on this build. Let's go ahead and go over the build. So let's start off with the skill trees. And first and foremost, you'll notice that I'm not doing Iron Cub, and I'm not really doing much with the purple tree. Now, don't let that cloud your judgment about whether or not the purple tree is good. It's just not for me. It's not something that I want to use with this build. That said, big surplus is big stupid. Basically, to make this thing work, while your action skill is cooling down, you get bonus incendiary damage. So that means if I hop into Iron Bear and then hop out of Iron Bear, well, guess what? My action skill is cooling down, even while Iron Bear is out. This Iron Bear will stay out here a while too, because I've got points into Auto Bear. Auto Bear will stay out for 15 seconds, and then you will get your cooldown still going, which a lot of times once you hop out of Iron Bear and that 15 seconds runs out, your action skill is going to be back. But you can hop in Iron Bear again, hop right back out of Iron Bear again, and get your action skill cooling down again, which means you can pretty much keep this thing going non-stop. And even though it only says 15%, it does get Mayhem scaling, which is what makes it so powerful. All right, next up, my favorite tree for MOZE is the blue tree, the Demolition Woman tree. Starting off with the Fire in the Skag Den, this thing is stupid OP, and I'm not complaining. Fire in the Skag Den allows you to do massive amounts of damage, especially when combined with the Capstone Short Fuse. We'll get to that here in a moment, though. I'm not going to put anything into Deadlines or Grizzled. I'm not real concerned about these skills. This does give you some Iron Bear armor and damage and fuel in case you do want to stay in Iron Bear and kill some stuff too, which you can absolutely do. Iron Bear with this build, if you're rocking the grenade launcher and doing double Vanquisher pods, you can wreck everything's face with just that alone. So one thing you can do is use Iron Bear, use your Vanquisher rocket pods, then jump out and start murdering with MOZE, which is what I prefer to do, generally speaking. All right, up next we got Means of Destruction. Whenever you deal splash damage, there's a chance to add ammo to your currently equipped weapons magazine with a smaller chance to return a grenade. This is really helpful because for MOZE to regenerate health, she's got a few different ways to regenerate health now, but her most popular one is this one, Vampire, and that requires you to be constantly throwing grenades in order to get health back. So if you have this skill, that gives you not a great chance to get a grenade back, but the amount of splash damage that you're going to do, you're basically going to be keeping grenades stocked up at all times. So it works really well with that. Up next, we got Pull the Holy Pin. Now this one allows your grenades to have crit damage. At max, it's a 30% chance unless you have something to boost it. But I just did 2 points in this because I didn't really need 3. All right, up next, we got Auto Bear, which we kind of talked about already. It stays out for 15 seconds after you jump out. And while it's out, it does not count as action skill active. In case you guys have been wondering that, I get that asked a lot. I don't use action skill active anointments with Iron Bear because it just doesn't work. It doesn't work when you have Auto Bear. It doesn't work normally unless you're in Iron Bear, and then you're not able to shoot your guns. So what's the point? That said, you can use action skill active anoints with Iron Cub, but Iron Cub does not get Mayhem scaling yet, and that's another big reason why it's not included on this build. I do like Iron Cub a lot. It's adorable, but it doesn't do a whole lot of damage, so we're not using that here. Again, Vampire, this will restore 20% of missing health per enemy hit. Now, the thing about about this skill is that people don't seem to understand. It doesn't matter what level your grenade is. It just matters that it hits enemies. That's all that matters. So you can use a level 15 cloning maddening tracker and it'll be just as effective at healing you as a level 65 cloning maddening tracker. So keep that in mind whenever you're farming. If you've already got a good cloning maddening tracker and you don't want to farm for a new one, guess what? You don't have to. That said, you won't do as much damage with your other grenade stuff if you're using a low level one, and that's the main reason why we keep farming them. That said, again, you saw the Nagata. You saw what that thing was doing. I also really like the Hex grenade right now. Really liking the Hex grenade right now. Not as good as the cloning maddening tracker, obviously, for healing yourself, because as you can see when we throw this thing out, we'll be hard pressed to die for constantly spamming the cloning maddening tracker, and that's the reason why it's so popular with most players. Now that they've ripped my shields, as you can see, we keep our health going back up, and it's pretty consistent in that regard. The problem with the Nagata is you do have to aim it, unlike the cloning maddening tracker. The cloning maddening tracker, you can just kind of chuck it in a direction and you'll be fine. I was way too close to that guy to be throwing that grenade. You don't want to throw the Nagata when you're that close to a dude, trust me. But yeah, as you can see, this thing will actually do some pretty good work. Another one that I forgot to include on here is the Tiny Tina's grenade. That thing does really well. Also, the light speed does really well. Again, not as good as the cloning maddening tracker in terms of healing you, but this thing does some really cool stuff. As you can see, it'll actually kill enemies pretty well. And then I don't know if you saw the projectiles fly out there, but not the best one for healing yourself. Again, that's always going to be the cloning maddening tracker, it would seem. But the Tina's Hippity Hopper is actually pretty good too. So that covers that. Let's go back into the skill tree here. And now we're down to explosive punctuation. I don't use why can't I carry all these grenades, because again, we can keep regenerating grenades with this skill up here. And I don't use to the last, even though throwing grenades and fight for your life seems like a fun idea. It's a skill point, or it's 1 point that I don't really need to waste on that. Got 4 out of 5 in explosive punctuation. This gives me some action skill cooldown rate. Mostly I just spec'd into that so I could get to my capstone of short fuse. Whenever MOZE deals gun damage, there's a chance of a secondary explosion centered on the target, and this is what makes basically all of MOZE's weapons do massive amounts of splash damage to people. So even a pistol that doesn't really do much in the way of splash damage gets splash damage with this skill. So it's a very strong, and as you see, we just melt people instantly. Fun skill, just a lot of fun in general to use. And again, I like to use the double vanquisher pods when I'm in Iron Bear. I tell you what, we'll run into this next area and show you how strong this is. This build is a lot like my previous Mozerker build. I feel like I'm EA Sports over here. I just, you know, put a fresh coat of paint on this build. No, not really. There's some new things. There's some new weapons. There's some new skills in play here. Like I said, we're utilizing 3 points in the purple tree. You don't have to do that. If you don't have arms race, then, you know, obviously just, you know, don't worry about putting points into a skill tree that you don't have, obviously. And let's just kill this guy with the cloning maddening tracker, because we can. All right, let's go on to the next tree. In the Shield of Retribution tree, I would love to get down to experimental munitions, but I ran out of points because I wanted to get bottomless mags capstoned out. If I didn't need big surplus to be so strong, and I honestly don't really need it to be in this build, but if you're not, okay, I tell you what, if you're not using the purple tree, then take those 3 points, put 2 here and put 1 here in experimental munitions, because you're going to get a lot of bonus incendiary damage that way as well when you score critical hits. But we've got 5 out of 5 in armored infantry, and we've got 3 out of 5 in drowning and brass. Drowning and brass is a really strong skill, and armored infantry will give you gun damage and damage reduction while your shields are active. That's the key there, is you need your shields to be active, so keep that in mind. On to the bottomless mags tree. This is what keeps my ammo count up all the time. Over here we got cloud of lead. This will occasionally it will keep you from actually using ammo, and you'll deal additional incendiary damage. Then we got Stoke the Embers. This increases your incendiary damage even more. We got Redistribution. When you score a critical hit, you regenerate ammo and health for a few seconds. To lower your health, the more powerful the health regeneration. All right, up next we got Scrappy. This, while moving, MOZE's weapon damage, handling, weapon swap speed, and mode switch speed are increased. This is great for Maliwan weapons, but the weapon damage is good for everything. So just as long as you're moving, which you should probably always be moving, you're going to deal extra extra damage. Speaking of moving, while you are sprinting, you will get lifesteal. Basically, you want to be shooting and moving at all times with this build, and that will give you lifesteal of 8%. It doesn't work as well as you would think, but it does give you some lifesteal. Up next, we got Scorching RPMs. MOZE gains increased fire rate, critical hit damage. Iron Bear gains increased hardpoint damage. So your fire rate is 12%, your critical hit damage is 16%, then it gives Iron Bear another 20%. Up next, we got Iron Bank to increase our mag size. This gives us 35% larger mag size, which is very nice for MOZE. We got 1 point into Specialist Bear, and then I don't bother with Click Click because I'm never going to hit the point where I need to have Click Click going. If I did, then that would be a nice skill, but we also don't need Some for the Road. This one's infinite ammo when you exit Iron Bear, but we're doing Forge, so I'm always going to have ammo. And then we had the purple tree like we showed earlier. All right, let's cover the weapons. Now we got the Tizzy. This one's a consecutive hits Tizzy, the ×3 as well, very strong. Flacker, like I said, this thing's been buffed, it's very strong now. Plasma Coil, this thing is just absolutely the tits now, dude. If you guys haven't used the Plasma Coil from Arms Race, you're missing out. This thing will always be either shock or radiation. So if you're shooting fleshy targets, go with radiation because you don't have any penalty on that when you shoot that. If you're working on shields, then radiation or shock will both work. And this one, after exiting Iron Bear, I get 160% splash damage for 18 seconds as well. So I'm gonna run over here and we're gonna kill some dudes with this thing. And I know we're on Athena, so you guys are probably like, oh, well, everything over here is weak, so blah 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 blah. Well, that's fine. Let's run over here and visit what's her face and see how quickly we can kill her with this thing. Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good, dudes. Oh, we got a Trevinator. You know what? I'll include that with the build. The Trevinator got a buff recently as well. So nice. Look at that. Got one of the drops that's going to be included on this build live on the video recording of it. And the Trevinator is really, really good on MOZE because splash damage. Look at that, dude. Look at that. And the backstory on the Trevinator, in case for some reason you do not know, the Trevinator is named after Trevor Eastman, a huge Borderlands fan who unfortunately passed away from cancer before the game came out. But Gearbox went to his house with an early copy of the game, let him play it, and then allowed him to name a weapon after himself. And that's where the Trevinator came from. So a little happy, sad history there for you. I know I get emotional when I think about that. But anyhow, also we got light shows in various elements as well, and those are all consecutive hits. We got a Gargoyle on here. The Gargoyle is a really strong splash pistol. Also, we got a Dark Army. Now this one's only a Dark Army Plus. It's not a plus plus, but that's the only one that I've found so far. This flipper that has consecutive hits and it's cryo and also corrosive. Then we got this one, consecutive hits with fire and radiation. We got the Phasor. The Phasor just got a buff recently. Now, what makes the Phasor so good is, number one, it's a Vladoff assault rifle, so it's going to be high fire rate. So as you can see, shoots really fast, does pretty good damage. But what makes it really good is when you switch to the secondary fire mode, it is a shotgun, and that shotgun is really strong on MOZE because you're talking some serious splash damage, dudes. Serious splash damage. And MOZE is all about that splash damage, dude. And with bottomless mags, my shotgun should not run out of ammo. Means I can keep it in shotgun mode pretty much all the time, which means lots of extra splash damage. So that's what makes this so good, and that's why it's included with the build. We got a double penetrating shredded contained blast. This one's 300/90, which is not an ideal variant for this thing, but this thing is wicked strong. As you can see there, we do massive amounts of damage with each shot, and your first shot again is going to get that 300/90 damage. The Tiggs Boom. The Tiggs Boom is back in a big way. A lot of people didn't know that this thing got buffed a while back, and I'm going to take partial responsibility for not informing people enough of that. I'm going to go ahead and say my bad on that one. But yeah, Tiggs Boom is a lot of fun, man. So when you hit people with that, you'll see like the meteors fall from the sky, and they come in and land on people's heads and do a lot more splash damage. So a really fun splash weapon for MOZE. Another really fun weapon is the Insider. I got this earlier today while farming. The Insider is another kind of comparable to the Trevinator in a lot of ways, but this thing, look how many projectiles you get out of this thing. That's a lot of projectiles. What is it, 12 I believe it is with this particular one that I've got. 12 projectiles that are all going to hit for massive amounts of splash damage. 8,265 times 12 plus 200% splash damage on action skill end for a short time, which I believe is 18 seconds. So by the time your auto bear runs out, you'll have your auto bear back up. You can hop back out and have that action skill end splash damage again. Very, very strong. Up next, we got a plague bearer and a back burner. So actually, we got 2 back burners. I didn't include a plague bearer on here, but 2 back burners. We got a radiation one with 300/90, and we got a shock one with consecutive hits. Both of these are very strong. All right, up next, we got the complex root. This one, after exiting Iron Bear, 160% splash damage, gives you a good splashy sniper. And then we got the annexed boogeyman with 300/90. I showed this on my Zane build as well, but this thing is a lot of fun, and it's really good on MOZE because you can basically just hold down the trigger and not have to worry about ammo so much. So let's go ahead and hop in here on Trant and show you what this thing can do. I'm sure you guys have already seen in the intro what you can do with this build in general versus Trant, but we're gonna let Trant jump over there and we're gonna hit him with the boogeyman. Yeah, it's pretty good. So that is the weapons that I have on this build. Now let's talk about the shields. So obviously I like the old god, and the reason I like the old god is because with the old god, whichever one that I use on this build, I've got a shock one, I've got a cryo one, I've got a fire one, also got radiation and corrosive. So whichever one of these you use, it's going to give you 20% extra damage for that type of element. So, and it also gives you elemental resistance of that type as well. For this one, obviously, I'm going to get more fire damage, 20% more incendiary damage while wearing this thing. Plus, this one has on action skill in bonus shock damage for 10 seconds. Pop in and out of Iron Bear, you proc that, you get more shock damage on all your shots. So again, we got these in all the different elements that you want to mess around with there with. All right, let's talk about the grenades again. So we kind of already showed the grenades, but I'll go ahead and go over them again real quick because this section feels more like that's what it's supposed to be about. Cloning Lightning Tracker is the king, but you can use the Hex, you can use the Light Speed, you can use the Nagata, you can use the Vindicator Gas Call if you're lucky enough to get that during the Halloween event. If not, then boom, hey look, you got one. Also the Tiny Tina's grenade, always forget what it's called. Anyhow, that one's a good substitute. The Spring Epicenter is a good substitute if you can't find one of these as well, so keep that in mind. You just want a grenade that's going to hit as much as possible. So see how on the Cloning Lightning Tracker it splits into 2 grenades in flight, and then that spawns 3 Merv grenades, and then it bounces and detonates up to 3 times. That's a lot of hits that it's going to put on enemies, which again is what makes this skill work, hitting enemies with your grenade. And that's another reason why I say that the Nagata is kind of underrated in that regard, because it's going to hit a lot, but you do have to aim it very carefully. Up next, in terms of the class mods, I love the Minesweeper. This isn't anything new, but when you land a critical hit with this thing, it has a 25% chance to drop a micro grenade that explodes after a short time. You combine that with the skill tree and all the other stuff, plus this has splash damage on it, and Jacob's weapon critical and assault rifle, which those 2 skills aren't really helpful on this particular roll that I got, but if you find one with splash damage, obviously it doesn't matter too much what the other rolls are. This thing just absolutely melts bosses. You hit them in their crit spots and you just watch their health just disappear, as you saw with Trant just now. You can also use the flare. This one came with DLC 4. You can basically use this to stay in Iron Bear and do lots of damage. We do have a couple of the new class mods on here. This one has the capstone included on it. Whenever MOZE ignites an enemy, she has a 15% chance to reset her action skill. I don't find this to be useful at all, just so you know, but it's on here in case you want to play around with it. The green monster, this one will give you bonus corrosive damage the longer you fire your weapon. We got the bloodletter. Bloodletter is obviously great if you're going to do any kind of like deathless build or URAD build, so it's on here, but you don't even necessarily have to do a URAD build. If you want to, you can just swap to this. And Phalanx Doctrine is a really strong skill, and you can see we got +3 on it. Up next, we got Raging Bear. This is the Mayhem 4 and a higher exclusive class mod that drops from Billy the Anointed. Whenever Iron Bear kills an enemy, it gains decreased fuel usage. Whenever Iron Bear takes damage, it gains increased damage. So the more you're getting damaged with Iron Bear, the more damage you're going to deal with Iron Bear. So it's a really fun class mod, and it does have +4 to stainless steel bear. You might want to play around with it. Up next, we got the Sapper. If you're finding yourself struggling to remember to throw grenades, you can swap to the Sapper class mod. You're still going to output massive amounts of damage, but you're not going to want to really use this for a boss killing, maybe just for general mobbing or running through like the Guardian takedown or the Malawan takedown. Maybe use this just to keep your health up. Basically, while you're shooting enemies, you're going to get lifesteal, but you have to be holding down the fire button. So weapons like the Contained Blast that I showed you earlier, where you have to trigger pull on each shot, or Jacob's weapons you have to trigger pull, those will not heal you with the sappers. You have to use weapons that will constantly allow you to hold down the trigger. So this basically will keep you alive nonstop. Blastmaster, this one's probably the most all-around useful class mod for MOZE. This one does have redistribution on it. It also has Vampire and pull the holy pin, so some really strong skills. Plus this has splash damage, weapon damage, and grenade damage. Really great roll in this thing. And that covers it for the class mods. Now for the artifact. I've only included 3 artifacts with this build, and the reason why is you only need the Pearl of Ineffable Knowledge. That's it. That's all you need. There is also a cut purse launch pad. That's kind of just for laughs, really, because if you run out of ammo, I don't know what the hell you did. I don't know how you did it, but congratulations. But you can use the cut purse launch pad to get your ammo back if you need to. And the snowdrift is just on there in case you want to zip through some maps really quick. But yeah, Pearl of Ineffable Knowledge is where it's at. So that's the build. That is the weapon choices. That is how I like to play it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this look at Mozerker 6.0. Man, we're going to run out of numbers at some point. If you did, make sure you hit that like button, hit subscribe, tap the bell icon for more, and I will see you guys in the next one. Y'all have a great day.